Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining me from. Today, we're back again with our OWASP Spotlight series, and you can see that we have a beautiful new logo with us today. And we are back again with our beautiful OWASP background. Now, I know that we did OWASP Spotlight series. We have not done it for a very, very long time, but now you'll see that there are a lot of videos coming soon in the coming weeks. And today also we have very interesting project with us, and I'm not going to share about information about it, but Karan is going to share. So let me bring on Karan, who is the project leader for the project that we're going to talk about today. Hi, Karan.
Hey, hi Vandana.
Karan, thank you so much for joining me. And the moment you told me about this OWASP project, I was very fascinated. I was like, I have to bring you on as soon as possible, and we'll talk about your project. So, first, we'll talk about you. If you can share some introduction about you, and then about the project that we'll be talking about.
Thank you Vandana for having me. My name is Karan. I am the project leader of OWASP Vulnerable App. I'm a software engineer by profession, with a lot of focus on security.
Lovely. So, I want to know, what is this OWASP vulnerable app? Because when I know about vulnerable app, there are already projects like Juice Shop, WebGoat, DVWA. At least when I talk about my journey with AppSec, damn vulnerable web application or WebGoat was something which was there at that time, and it's still there. So why do we need any other web application or vulnerable web application, and what it is all about?
Yes. So OWASP Vulnerable App is kind of a lot different from these vulnerable applications. So all these vulnerable applications like Juice Shop or say WebGoat or others, their primary audiences is students. So they are built for students in the sense that they have say in order to teach SQL injection, they have say 3 levels or 2 levels, or that's it, right? They are not written for scanners, like neither for dynamic application security testing tools like Burp Suite or Zap, nor for SaaS tools like SemGrep and others. Now, if we look at these tools, SAST and DAS tools, they majorly have these scan rules and a lot of these payloads, right? Now, for these many payloads, we need to have a lot of these levels. So, for example, a SQL injection can have, say, 10 levels. A different kind of SQL injections are there, maybe more levels than this. For every payload, like in order to test those payloads, you need to have more different variations of that particular vulnerability. Say, for example, I will just give an example of SQL injection can occur with, say, if we concatenate and create a SQL query. Similarly, even if we don't use prepare statement in a right way, then also we get the similar kind of vulnerability. And there are so many other ways in which these vulnerabilities can occur. And all of them is being covered by a WASP vulnerable app. Not just that, we also give ground truth. Like we tell these are the particular vulnerabilities that we have in our application. And now a scanner can evaluate, or the or any organization can evaluate which scanner is better for them for their use case. That's how we are different from all these Juice Shop and others. Now, the another thing is that even when we started building this up, it also helps students because we have a lot of these vulnerabilities. It becomes like a question bank or a lot of these vulnerabilities, plus we have secure implementation of these vulnerabilities as well, and multiple secure implementations. So that's how it is different from other vulnerable applications.
Yeah, and especially when you talk about these targets, tell us about the journey. How does this vulnerable app started, and why did you wanted to have separate one? I know that you wanted to have a lot of test bed and then a bunch of other things for different audience. But how was this journey for you?
Yeah. So it all started in 2019. I was writing scan rules for Zap Proxy. At that time, it was called OWASP Zap. Now it is called Zap by Ben Checkmarks. So I was writing that JWT scan rule. And while writing, I wrote, say, 10 or 12 scan rules. And then I asked one of the project leads, how can I test those scan rules? And the response I got is, look at the existing vulnerable applications and try to extend them. I looked at a few, and I found that it is not very trivial to extend those vulnerable applications. So then I thought that maybe every scan rule developer is writing a vulnerable application, and then they are throwing away this work also. So I thought that, okay, I will write a vulnerable application, but I don't want to throw it away. So I wrote a vulnerable application for my JWT scan rule, and then added a lot of vulnerable levels, also secure implementations, and also expose the ground truth. And now what happens is, I was able to test my scan rule in a better way, and that's how it all started. Then what happened is, I moved away to another scan rule called for file upload. Now, file upload vulnerability depends on platform. Say, for example, if we upload a PHP file on a JSP server, it has no impact, right? But if we similarly upload that PHP file on a PHP server, it has a lot of impact. So therefore, I decided to build a platform kind of agnostic or multi-platform vulnerable application, which is not just targeting single, say, Java platform or say PHP. It covers a whole lot of platforms in itself.
Now, while it covers it, there is one more thing about the architecture. So, what is the architecture of this vulnerable app? Probably, if you want to share your screen and tell us about it, because see, if let's say I want to use this vulnerable app, how does it actually look like? So, somebody
Sure.
who's very new, even a student, so how does it look like for them?
Sure. Let me share my screen. Able to see my screen?
Uh, yeah, yes. Can you please make it full screen?
Oh, sure.
Lovely.
Okay. So this is kind of the overall Uber architecture of vulnerable app. So we have a facade app, which is this vulnerable app facade, which is nothing but an open REST based based application, which is the front end of all the vulnerable applications. Say vulnerable app GSP, PHP, LLM Forge, and multiple other vulnerable applications. Now, vulnerable app facade is what routes the traffic from any end user to different vulnerable applications, whether it is a if it is a PH. There are, and we have implemented multiple vulnerabilities for each of the tech stacks. So uh, so what happens is that whenever, say, for example, a scanner developer, or say, for example, a student wants to learn about, say, AI related vulnerabilities, the same vulnerable app facade routes the requests towards the LLM forge, and then they can play around with the LLM vulnerabilities. Now, if I give a overview of how it looks like um, inside the, let me quickly, I will just start it. So our entire architecture, in a bit it will start, but our entire architecture is based on Docker. So the first vulnerable app facade is also a Docker machine, a Docker container, and then all the vulnerable applications are also Docker containers. So the first Docker container then routes the the request to the other containers. So as an example to this, let me start it. So we have started the vulnerable app. This is the consistent UI of vulnerable app. You can see on the left, you can see all the vulnerable applications, and then you can see this. There are multiple other features. I can talk about them. Um, like, for example, this is the vulnerable application, which is kind of the first application which I built, which is written in Spring Boot Java. Now it has a lot of these vulnerabilities, And then we have similarly LLM Forge, which contains all the LLM related vulnerabilities, and then JSP and the PHP specifically, where it has file upload and magic hash. Now, not just this, we have also, as I earlier told, we like our application exposes the ground truth. So, which means that we here exposes these two endpoints, DAST and SAST. If I open this, say in a newer tab, we expose this. If I show it in another tab here, so this is the ground truth for DAST, where we expose that this URL has this kind of vulnerability, which is like error-based SQL injection vulnerability. This endpoint has. Similarly, this endpoint has another vulnerability list, which is plain text password storage. And similarly, there are like the variant explains what type of vulnerability, like is it secure or not. So for example, we have some many unsecure implementations. Similarly, we have many secure implementations as well, like this is the secure implementation of this. Now, and also we expose like what kind of method it is, in order for us to, and we have an inbuilt comparator also, where say a scanner like Zaproxy ran and it found few vulnerabilities, it can then run against our comparator, which will compare against this ground truth and then gives a score. I will talk a bit about that score in a bit. Similarly, for SAST tools also, we have this kind of ground truth where we tell, okay, this file contains this CWE and at what line. So it helps. If let's suppose SemGrep gives us a JSON, like the format which we expect, then we will compare and present the number of like uh, the the coverage for done by the SemGrep. And I'm now moving back. So we recently have built these two modes. One is called challenge mode and one is scanner mode. Majorly, we started with scanner mode, where it helps scanners to evaluate themselves, or for other organizations to evaluate scanners. But recently, we introduced this challenge mode. Now, what happens is that, say, for example, any vulnerability, let me go to, say, error-based SQL injection. Now, first, when you click on this, say this is the vulnerable application which has a lot of these vulnerabilities, and every vulnerability will have then multiple levels. And now once you go to that level, you get the description of that vulnerability, and then you can actually practice that vulnerability as well here. So we have multiple repositories like vulnerable app, LLM Forge, Facade, PHP, and few others. Now, every repository contains issues, and all the issues are marked as either good first issues for easier picking, or the first timers, they can come and pick those good first issues. And and we and it is not just about contributing with code. We also want some contribution with testing, because this is very important for us. As the AI based contributions have increased way more, it has caused a lot some problems in that sense. So we want to get community feedback for every contribution. So we have opened a lot of these community testing uh, related issues. And yeah, that's so it. And similarly, we have also opened one of the
Mm-hmm.
issues related to UI UX for our landing page. We are trying to make vulnerable app live.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many things which we are thinking, and there are many um, interesting issues that are present in the repository, not just for in the vulnerable app, but they are also present in other like LLM Forge and few other repositories. So um, that's how they can come and contribute. Even documentation contribution is also welcomed. Every contribution is welcomed in vulnerable app.
Lovely. I think this is amazing. And I am sure there are a lot of people who are going to contribute to it. Thank you so much for sharing the wonderful insights about the project.
Thank you, Vandana. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We will see each other again in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.